Well, 18 episodes later, we finally got here and we're at the finale. If you've enjoyed this journey and learned a lot, we're going to talk a lot about what it meant, some of the challenges that we still see that AI faces, and what are some of the things you can do and how to really be successful with AI. So, if that interests you, join us as we start discussing stupid. Well, after 18 episodes, we're here in the finale. And what an interesting ride this has been. I mean, I can honestly say that if I could have predicted Cole at the beginning of this series that I was going to learn as much as I did that I didn't know about AI that I thought I did, um, it kind of goes to probably one of the core things that I've learned through all the years of my life, which is that you're constantly learning. And now with AI, what you learn today you need to change the way you learn tomorrow. So it's kind of that crazy thing. But anyway, we're here, we're done. This is it. How are we going to do this?
Well, first off, quick shout out to the listeners of this season. We have for season 3 broken 2,000 total listeners, so that's a cool
Wow,
little milestone
that's a
here.
really good number.
Yeah, so thanks
Yeah.
everyone for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. I think we started back in like October.
Probably a good time to plug that if you're at all interested in seeing our faces, you can also watch us on YouTube.
Yeah, indeed,
And we have the full video version of it where you can see our smiling faces and everything.
indeed.
Um, and
Yeah, we do go beyond the audio file here.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
beyond is probably just you can see our faces. We don't, and you can see how much my hands move.
yeah, yeah, that's fun. That's
That's
fun.
probably about it.
Yeah, but I mean, so you talked about, we've learned a lot over the course of this series, but at the same time, like the whole reason we started the series is we recognized a lot of the hype going on with kind of the AI culture. Some may call it like a cult even. um, but yeah, so we've learned a lot over the course of the series, but we've kind of confirmed a lot of the initial reasons why we wanted to start the series in the first place, which is you can't just like, turn your brain off, give it to AI and have it do your work for you. That's kind of one of the main things that we wanted to explore over the course of the series, and we confirmed it over all episodes, and we established a lot of important things to keep in mind in using AI because it's indeed a very powerful technology that you can leverage in your operation. Um, but yeah, the way it's marketed has always kind of struck us in a bit of a weird weird way.
Well, it's funny because definitely over the last few episodes, we've kind of talked a lot about the backlash that is happening right now around AI.
Mhm.
And some of it is just because it's not meeting expectations. Um, and not 100% AI's fault. It's probably a little bit, a lot the people too. But you're right. It goes around the marketing. But the other thing is, I mean, commencement speakers are being booed at graduations that are mentioning AI as the future. Um, we have all the security issues that are coming across. I know we're going to talk a little bit about what happened with Meta and Instagram, which just kind of makes me laugh. And then you've kind of got this whole thing, with the data centers, the big controversy around the data centers and everybody, all these companies wanting to build data centers on there. And then on the flip side, you have a lot of these AI companies going public and basically some of the largest valuations ever for their thing. So you've kind of got this yin and yang, these two opposite sides that, instead of maybe balancing one another, very much fighting one another about what AI really brings to the table and what our future is. But the only thing I can tell you for a fact is it's part of our future. Now, whether we'll go on to the Matrix level and all those other sci-fi movies and eventually they'll be our overlords, or whether we'll literally never have to work again because AI will do everything in it, I can't totally tell you. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. To me, there's a lot of hubris in the people that work in the AI industry that don't seem to care about boundaries. in that. But at the same time, there's also a lot of expectations that are completely unrealistic in the AI world in that. And which is why we started this series because we wanted to be intentional AI. Otherwise, if you use it intentionally for smaller pieces, it can do a lot for you.
Yeah. Um, I agree with, all you just said. I think the backlash is largely justified, especially when we're talking about, like, being someone who graduated recently, um, and just you're entering the work world, and all of a sudden there's this technology that's pretty much, threatening your degree that you just worked super hard for, and your kind of life as an employee in general. And it's like, yeah, that's scary. And also the data centers and locals in these small towns are like, the heck, like my electricity bill has gone up so much. Anyways, yeah, and the backlash is justified on those fronts. And then also, in the kind of more security, and just practical usage standpoint as well. Um, but yeah, man, like,
From that side, I think though we can definitely take lessons learned from what we did. And I know our last episode we talked about kind of around prompts themselves. But I think the one thing I've learned, and you and I can kind of go back to, and so I'm going to just give a little bit of background on it real quickly and say that I've been building an internal application for our organization through a site, an AI system called Zite. And I've been really blown away with what it's done for me in that I've been able to build it. I've been able to replace basically 4 SaaS systems that we've used and some spreadsheets that we've used and a lot of different things to do a lot of different functions for us. Um, but I always go back to the conversation when UI and Seth had that conversation about it. And, I agree with what you said. And then it's like, well, the reason it worked is because it was me.
yeah,
And one, I know how to code. I know how to build out a database. I know how to create business logic and understand kind of the functionality that I need around a system. But I think it also goes one more step further. So I think that's, yeah, the good lesson that AI is kind of as powerful as the person that is actually using it
yeah,
in that. So you have an understanding of what you're trying to do, it's going to be so much more effective. But I think on top of that, it's our processes. The processes that we replicated into the system and made better. We know these processes really, really well. As a matter of fact, there's only one piece that we still have to build out, and that's because that's the system that we're trying to create new processes as. Instead of just going crazy and building this massive system around it, we're kind of doing that stage by stage, piece by piece, um, to be able to go through that. And I think that's really critical. Is that really a key to success? Is not only that you have knowledge around what you're trying to do, and that's kind of a problem. Is a lot of people that are using AI to fill gaps of things they don't know, and where that is a worthy cause. The problem is that that also means that you don't know whether what AI gives back or recommendations, what it builds with that is actually good
yeah.
in there. And that is a big problem because, you have that piece. But the other thing is also you're trying to get it to replace processes that maybe you wanted to implement or that you have no knowledge about. So what we're seeing is kind of from that intentional side is that if you understand what you want and you understand the processes to get there, you can legitimately get AI to help you out with it.
Yeah, which is where this, development of this tool, using, I believe the name is Zite, the software, that we're using
Yeah.
to replace these, I think we've narrowed it down from, like, 4, software as a service tools. Yeah, our process knowledge has been there at each step, and even as we're, building out our next processes, we're keeping that in mind, so it's going to be we know that it's gonna be a successful operation because of that. But there's plenty of examples out in the real world where that's just not happening with AI, and that's where, the return, on investment is just not really seen. A very small scale example that I really like that you brought up yesterday was, I believe you were at the gym, and you overheard a young man talking about how like AI made his workout plan for him. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. No, I just, I always laugh the random things, and sometimes gym, sometimes other places. I even ran into a person I used to work with a long time ago, and they were like, "I've got this chat GPT on my phone and I use it, and boy, I ask it a question and it gives me an answer." And she was so excited about that. But here in particular, I'm seeing more and more people talk about like using AI to build workouts and that kind of stuff. And again, I didn't stop and talk, just kids talking. I kind of laughed as I walked past, but I didn't stop. But I would have loved to stop and say, so how do you know that that's what you need? Because, yeah, it might have looked at best practices out there, but anybody that knows anything about lifting knows, yeah, different things work for different body types, different activities work for different things. Everybody has different goals and that kind of stuff. So I have no idea what this person put into figuring this out, but I'm just gonna stereotype and say since it was a teenager, probably was like, I want to get washboard abs, create me a workout type of thing in there. But that's kind of one of the things that go there, and a lot to the backlash that's happening around AI right now is that again, it's not necessarily the tools. It's not that the tools can do everything. I mean, we've shown throughout a lot of our episodes is there's a lot of things that the tools, when you want the tool to be creative and give you original content, it just not very good at it. It's good at taking what's there and analyzing it and doing something with it in there. So that's why, you use it for images, you use it for video, you use it for content and that kind of stuff. You get results, but if you want something specific, you never get that
Yeah,
specific result you in that.
and
But if you use it to analyze something,
yeah, and I mean to be fair, like with the example of that kid at the gym, like it probably generated him like a workout that was fine. But the issue that I see with that is like that is an example of, maybe finding some success with AI. Maybe he does get those washboard abs. I don't know. But then you're kind of training your brain to depend on AI for like maybe more and more and more. Like it's kind of like um, you know, once you give people a certain powerful technology, they're not very likely going to just be like, I don't want to use that anymore. So what in the future might someone who asked AI to use a workout or to generate a workout for you, what might you depend on it for? And then what if you're not an expert on that and you can't evaluate the output? And then that's the slippery slope.
and that's the big thing right there, and you really nailed it on the head because I think the reason we talk about this workout thing is because it really is a microcosm of what AI is like.
Yes.
So it created a workout. You are not gonna know whether that was a good workout for 3 to 6 to 9 months or however long it's gonna take you to actually develop those apps. So 6 months from now, you're may not still know whether it actually did any good. Well, that truthfully is the same as AI. If you're building out huge processes in there to make huge efficiencies in your organization, you're honestly not going to know whether that's doing anything for a very long period of time. Therefore, if you got it wrong, 6 months ago, which is what's happening in a lot of organizations. They all implemented these things. They brought in the companies. They did all this stuff. Now they're like, well, this actually hasn't made work life much better. It really hasn't created efficiencies in that. And that's why we really, and I know people are sick of hearing it, but we focus on those small things.
Yeah.
Those small things that we do it. And honestly, with the app, a lot of the things we did is we replicated, improved, but we replicated a lot of what we saw in these SaaS systems that we liked, and we had used those processes for years, and we knew that that worked for the way we wanted to work. What was missing was all that information connected together to be one complete system, which is what we really did. Now we've made some improvements to kind of fit more our way we do work, but overall, I mean, it's just amazing from that. And again, it's taking that, it's a known process. It's something we really know. It's taking something that's been proven and pushing it into there versus what a lot of people are doing with AI, which is trying something new and then honestly not being sure if the results are actually good and biting off more than they can chew. And then in the end, they're like, well, that didn't do what I wanted. Well, the reality is, depending on the thing, it might not have, but overall, you didn't give it an opportunity to do what you wanted it to do
Yeah.
because you didn't have your side figured out.
'Cause at the end of the day, like, with this tool that, you've built, Virgil, like, you and the rest of our HighMonkey team, we probably could have built it, you know? But the reason why we use AI is to save time. That's so everything was defined upfront. And yes, like, AI assisted in some of the planning and so whatnot, but, like, you were still, like, you were steering the ship, and you save time, and that is really where AI comes in handy. That's probably my biggest takeaway of the series is like, if you're using AI to, automate a process that like is just like time is your enemy, like nice,
Yeah,
cool.
and that and everybody's gonna roll their eyes at that, but, I just had a conversation the other day with a young man that is trying to build an app, and, he's looking for somebody to mentor, kind of on the business side, helping him understand things. But one of the things I talked to him about because he kinda built this first version of his app, and it didn't go well. And he spent so much time trying to add new features and new things. He never really went back and looked at what he was doing. And that's so typical of what happens with almost anything. So one of the pieces of advice I get, I said, before I even did this, I said, it took me 3 months to get this app in place. In that the first month, literally, what was I doing? I was building a database diagram. I was mapping out all the functionality we wanted for the different components. I was having meetings with you and Seth talking about the different things. I was talking with Chad and other people about kind of these different pieces and what they'd want and what it was. We were looking at all our different pieces and kind of really saying what we like, what we don't like in that. So I literally spent a month of that before I even started doing anything. So when we got there, I literally had a good plan and had a lot of success. Now, don't get me wrong, there's also some value to this tool, and I know that's not what this episode is about, but one of the things that it does really well that a lot of AI tools don't necessarily upfront do it is you have 3 different modes for the tool, and so you pay per credit, for using this tool, and, they have a chat where you can, like, ask questions and talk to it. And kind of say, how can I do this functionality or something? What would you recommend in that? So that was kind of good. I had a lot of conversations with it as I was planning this out, to figure that out. And then it has a plan mode, and this is what I love. I can say exactly what I wanted to do, and then put it in plan mode. Instead of building it, it actually builds me out the entire plan, tells me exactly how it's going to build everything, assumptions it's making, changes it's not going to do, features that it's not going to add because I didn't ask for it and that. And I read through that, and that's where my knowledge really comes through, not only of building, but also of our processes to go through this plan step by step and say, oh, no, I want this different, or nope, I didn't think about that in there. I've made so many adjustments to the plan at that stage that when I build, I feel highly confident that if it does what the plan said, which is what I want, it will build it. And I can tell you that 99.9% of the time, it has done everything exactly like I wanted it. It's been about point one. And I said one of the funniest things is I had 2 columns that I needed to switch the order of on a table, and for some reason, it just wouldn't do that. It was such a stupid little thing, but I was able to go into the JavaScript code and do that myself. But, I mean, that right there is there. It's kind of a microcosm of how you should use AI in the first place. Use it to help you figure out what you need to do and what its capabilities are to help you. Use it to help plan it out and make sure that it has a good understanding, and that if it uses this understanding, it will build or do exactly what you want. I mean, that is actually a perfect way to be able
Yep.
to use AI from that in that side.
Yeah, that planning feature, um, yeah, obviously not all tools have that exact, like, system in place, but yeah, you should,
Well, you could use them all that
you
way.
could,
I mean,
if you
you know
if you're
yeah.
talking to the AI in a specific way where, like, that's what you're seeking, before it produces output. Like reflect back what you're trying to do. I mean, that's kind of harder to do without the system in place, but still, I mean, that's a pretty powerful feature, you know? 'Cause
It is, it
yeah,
is, and yeah, so, I mean, one of the reasons that it has those 3 tiers is because you're paying per credit, and so you use less credits to chat, and then you use a little bit more to plan, and then you use most of them to build because it uses and it switches between the models and access to all these, models, but the reality is that's another thing that's happening with AI is that's where everybody's going. I mean, I give it another year, maybe another year and a half, um, and almost everybody's gonna be on, you're not gonna have unlimited AI, you're gonna be paying by credit
yeah,
type of thing and that and so it's the point of using smart. Uh, but now, one of our other points we wanted to make, I wanna use this tool for, and of course, if the people at Zite hear this, they're gonna close this loop. But this is something we've talked a lot about security and everything else like that. So this is something Zite would be considered a low code builder. Otherwise, you use AI, you can do things in a low code. You don't have to code yourself in that. The Gen Sparks, the Lovables, all those right there. Well, they've all been getting a very bad rap because they're building code, but it is security vulnerable and people are launching these apps on public things and they're easy to hack. So Zite did a really great job of building my app, but it didn't do such an awesome job of making it highly secure for what we needed in that. So I actually worked with it and had it do security checks and it found, I think out of all of its calls to the database and that kind of stuff, like 75 of them were correct. The other thing it didn't do well is in that a lot of our interfaces are very similar to the other ones. The way we show tables, the way we show tabs, the way we show lists, the way we show like our project timelines versus our Scrum board and that kind of stuff. Um, it did those all differently with different code. So I worked with it a lot over time to clean that up and use it so that it was centralizing that stuff so that when and do it. And now with every time I put together a plan, I say, and make sure that you follow best security practices, that you follow the layout and styling and everything and functionality methods that currently exist in the environment.
yeah,
And it's done a better job, but not perfect. So that's something that I have for myself is regularly doing those type of things. And that's a big thing around AI is that as people start using it to build these apps and that people aren't really thinking about the ramifications of that. And that's something that you have to be very sensitive to because a lot of people are sharing, they're using chat GPT and they're saying, here's all our company documents that are our strategic plan for the next 20 years and please create me a report on that. Well, that's great, but at the same time, you just provided it to Chat GPT and OpenAI and anybody that has access to that stuff, all your company secrets in there. People just aren't really thinking about that from the standpoint. And we laugh because we heard about Meta
yeah, I was
AI,
just about to say.
where hackers were able to figure out how to hack into high profile Instagram cat how? By asking Meta.ai how to hack into those Instagram accounts, and it gave them the answer. I mean, how ridiculous is that? And that's where we have to do it. You have to also be cautious on that side.
Yeah, if only Meta had taken the same precautions that you did in Zite.
Well, and I'm not going to say I was perfect. I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't
but
do it till
still, like, it's
later.
Meta, like
And honestly, yeah. I mean, it's an internal system. You can't get to it unless you are in our account in Zite. So that's there. And I had some good discussions about their account security. But nonetheless, it's still something you want to happen from that side. So, I mean, that's something there. So it's both sides. But again, this kind of goes back to what we said originally. It's you understanding things and understanding what needs to happen in there. And low code is such an awesome thing to think about. But the reality is, if you're getting AI to build stuff for you and you don't understand the security issues around that or the other things or how functional, I mean, performance issues, all that kind of stuff. If you need to make it accessible for people in your organization that have accessibility challenges, all those kind of things have to come into play, and you have to be thinking about those as part of the process, in there, and that's where the knowledge and the understanding of your processes and the understanding of the build process itself, I think is critical. So I think, those type of tools are going to be very valuable for people that have dev or highly technical mindsets. But for business people, which is who it's marketed to, you're potentially creating something that's going to be a complete mess somewhere down the road.
The way I like to think about it is AI is it's kind of a mirror. So whatever you bring to it, it's going to kind of reflect that back at you. And we're not quite at the point yet, at least in our testing over the course of the series, where it's going to really like push back or give you your blind spots. I mean, unless you really integrate that into your pre-prompting and whatnot, probably won't. It'll probably just confirm what you're saying. So
Yeah. I mean, so let's look out of all of our episodes, what are the things that we would legitimately use AI for to help us build things? Well, I think a lot of the SEO stuff we did, it's a legitimate, it can help you out with that. I think, looking at analytics, it's very good at that. I think doing research,
Mhm.
going through massive amounts of information, it can do that. We probably wished we would have asked it better questions and given it more parameters on what it did for the original research of the article. But from there, search, it's another powerful piece. Coding, another powerful piece. Wireframes, even it did pretty good job. It doesn't necessarily make it very usable for us to manage and that kind of stuff. But from there, and I just used it recently to help me build out an information architecture, diagram and that kind of stuff. So there's things, but it's all things that I'm able to easily put parameters around, and it can come back with logical information. Where I wouldn't use it is I still would not use it. I might use it to give me content ideas, but I would never use it to generate original content. I would never use it to generate an original image unless I really didn't care what the image looked like and I just wanted, which is a lot of what people use it for because they don't care. They just want some, graphic out there,
Yeah,
video. They wouldn't use it for that stuff, even if you sat there and storyboarded it forever. So there's these balances of where it's going to be very effective and where it's not. Design, it did disaster in design, I think. I mean, it was very boring and monotonous, and it just made it look like a million other apps instead of like a unique design, that a web designer would.
to some degree, like, design is kind of pattern based. Like UX a lot of times should follow, a predictable pattern model. Like you should be able to know where you're probably going to find certain types of information and certain types of access points to stuff. Um, but at the same time, yeah, you're just very much sacrificing originality when you depend on AI for like a design or visual based output.
And it comes down to using AI intentionally, using it for good purposes, using it for specific purposes, and not what it is
Yeah,
in there. So,
this kind of is a
well,
continuation of
everybody, we can't tell you.
episode.
Oh, no, we talked over one
Yeah,
more time. And say, we sure thank everybody for joining us on the journey of season 3. We have a lot of exciting ideas already for season 4. Hopefully, going to launch that late September, early October. We'll kind of see when we get to that. And we might be just launching and have a few tidbits over the summer here, some micro episodes that we've been talking about doing. We might take a short break and then kind of start releasing those maybe towards the end of July or something. Just some little bite-sized things that of tips that we learned or tips that we can give that would be kind of little practical, little few minute. Here's how to do something type of things. So
right on.
thank you everybody for joining us and have a great summer.
Thanks all.
Just a reminder, we'll be dropping new episodes every 2 weeks. If you enjoyed the discussion today, we would appreciate it if you hit the like button and leave us a review or comment below. And to listen to past episodes or be notified when future episodes are released, visit our website at www.discussingstupid.com and sign up for our email updates. Not only will we share when each new episode drops, but also we'll be including a ton of good content to help you in discussing stupid in your own organization. Of course, you can also follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SoundCloud, or really any of the other favorite podcast platforms we might use. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next time.